Hello again, and what's hip? Today is a very average day. Not exciting, not bad, just lukewarm. Very average. And you know what I want to talk about on a day like this? Average video games. So, average video games. There have been many of them throughout my life. Lots of games that just didn't really hit me too well, but weren't bad, just not That's them. The 7 out of 10s, 6, 7 out of 10s. And today I've thought of 5 that I wanted to talk about with you guys. So let's just jump right into it. First game here is actually it's not a bad game. It's actually a pretty fun game. And that's Solar Striker for the original Game Boy. Now, this game here is not a bad game by any means, and it came out very early in the Game Boy life cycle, and it's actually one of my first original Game Boy games. I got this at a gaming store many years back called Game Trader, and I think I paid $5 for it in the box, and I remember being totally psyched, and I remember bringing it home and playing it, and I was like, oh, it's pretty fun. The music's pretty fun, and it's a 2D shoot 'em up, a shmup, and I just remember beating it really quickly. I think there's only several levels, and it's an incredibly short game. It's not too difficult. It get a little challenging at times, but it's not that bad. But it's just, I remember beating it, and I remember going, that was okay. It's I've played it multiple times throughout the year. It's fun to kind of pick up and play, but the graphics aren't great, even by Game Boy standards. The music is okay, but not wonderful. It's fairly uninspired. The backgrounds aren't anything to write home about. The enemies aren't anything to write home about. It's just it's very average, but it's still a lot of fun, and you can still pick it up for fairly cheap. So if you can find it for $5, I would say it's worth the $5 price tag. Is it worth more than that? Probably not much, but you'll get an hour of fun. So that was pretty quick to talk about. I guess that's average video games for you. But this next one here is a little newer. This is, man, even just looking at this cover, it just bores me. New Super Mario Bros. For the Wii. Now, some of you might be a little taken aback by this, but let me explain. So, I remember when this came out, and I remember we were getting just downpoured with a bunch of 2D Mario games like this. We had New Super Mario Bros. For the DS. We had the Game Boy Advance versions of Mario and all of that. And this came out in the middle of that, so we were getting kind of Mario'd out. I remember lots of Mario games, and this game, New Super Mario Bros. For the DS, was a very fun game, and it was a new coat of paint for the series. I remember not being too into it when it came out, but it was for handheld, and so it made sense. It was the handheld version of Mario, and there were some unique ideas in there that hadn't been done before. And I played and I beat the game, and I had a lot of fun with it. In fact, I remember going to Kmart, if you guys remember that store, and trying a demo of it out there, and just being like, wow, this is like New Super Mario Bros. 3, or Super Mario Bros. Old Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, and so then they announced this one, and I remember looking at it, and I remember thinking, that looks just like the DS version that came out not too long ago. And I got the game anyway, because I was a big Nintendo fan, and I remember putting it on, and I remember listening to that music and just being bored and disappointed. I hate the music in the new Super Mario Brothers series. Not a fan. There's a couple of standout tracks, but most of them are just they have that weird voice, MIDI voice thing. It's very, very strange. Not a big fan, but the gameplay is great. You know, it's a 2D Mario game. It just, the power-ups weren't really super unique. The setting, the world, the zones weren't unique. Music, in my opinion, was not very good. And it was basically just New Super Mario Bros. DS on the big screen. That was it. There was 4-player co-op that was introduced. Co-op, if that's what you even want to call it. That was the standout point of the game. Playing 2D Mario with other characters, or with other friends, you know, just throwing them off the edge and being a total just a-hole with them was so much fun. I had so many laughs playing that with friends. So that was a standout point of the game. But other than that, one of the most sick vanilla games I can think of. Very mediocre. I'll never go back and play it again. New Super Mario Bros. On the Wii U was better. It was a better game, but that one also still not a great fan. Now, this game here is interesting. It has Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield for the Nintendo Switch. I was a very big Pokemon fan when I was young. I started out with Pokemon Emerald, and I loved that. I played all the Game Boy Advance Pokemon games and the original Game Boy games, and I played the last Pokemon game I played completely was before this was Pokemon Black and White, and I loved that game. And then I just got a little burnt out of Pokemon, and I stopped playing it for years. Didn't play any of them, and then they announced Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I remember thinking, wow, this is kind of what I wanted when I was a kid, you know, a full 3D Pokemon game. How cool is that? So I had to pick it up, and this is the first Pokemon game that I played through all the way since Pokemon Black and White. And I remember just being so let down by this experience in the end, and the fact that I spent 30 hours or however long it was to beat this game, because this game is so incredibly generic, it hurts. The story is not good at all. There's no story except at the very end. At the very end, the story, it was a little interesting. If the whole game could have been like that, it would have been a much better game, but it was literally for like 30 minutes. And then the game was over, and I just, you know, a lot of potential wasted there. The characters are not memorable. Graphics are not that great. It's very unpolished. It just felt like this game was rushed. And yeah, it was, in my opinion, not good. Very, very mediocre. And one of my least favorite Pokemon games. I used to not like Diamond, but I think this one might be worse. The wild area was kind of cool, but couldn't save the game. Couldn't save the game. So this next game here, I actually don't own anymore because it was so incredibly average that I had to get rid of that. That was Paper Mario Sticker Star for the 3DS. And I was am a very big Paper Mario fan. I played through Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door when I was a kid. In fact, I played through that game 5+ times. That was and is probably one of my favorite video games of all time. And it just left such a mark on me. And I love Paper Mario on the 64. And I remember they came out with Super Paper Mario on the Wii, and they changed the gameplay formula. It wasn't turn-based battles anymore. And I remember just hating that so much. And I still do, but I played through the game, and the story was one of the best stories ever. And the charm and the writing was so wonderful that I ended up loving that game, even though it's not what I wanted it to be originally. And I was waiting for years for another Paper Mario game, and then they announced a new Paper Mario game for the 3DS, and I remember freaking out. I was so excited. And then they showed it off, and they brought back the turn-based battling system, which got me very excited. But it was, you had to use stickers as commands. So if you wanted to jump on someone, you had to have a jump sticker. Or if you wanted to use a hammer, you had to have a hammer sticker. And if you had no stickers, then you couldn't do anything. I remember thinking that was weird, but I was like, oh well. There was no overworld, or it was not a huge connected world. There was a big overworld map with levels, which I didn't like. But I remember playing through the game and thinking it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but the writing was nowhere near as good as the original Paper Mario games or even Super Paper Mario. And the world was horrible. It was very similar to New Super Mario Bros. Wii, in the fact that it was very uninspired. You have your grassland, your grass world, you have your swamp world, you have your underground world, and that was it. It was not very exciting. Very uninspired, and there were no unique characters except for your one partner who wasn't even really a partner because they got rid of partners. You couldn't use secondary partners for commands and whatnot, but you had a little partner that followed you around, and that would give you hints, kind of like a Navi thing from Ocarina of Time. And there was some potential with her. The writing there was probably the best throughout the whole game, was with that character, but they just ended up not going anywhere with that. So that there was some missed potential there, but overall it was just a very, very average game. It was New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but in paper form. So not good. I got rid of it. It was that average, and I usually don't get rid of games, so that says something. So this last game here is the newest game of the bunch, and it was a game that a lot of people were very hyped for, and it actually ended up getting very good reviews, but I voted this as the most 7 out of 10 game I have ever played, and that is Tales of Arise for the PlayStation 5 here. This game is so 7 out of 10. It was the graphics are amazing. The battle system is fantastic. The battle system here is one of the best battle systems I've ever experienced, and there's a lot of challenge to this game. It's not just a button masher, which I really appreciated. And the world settings were really beautiful. But the story was so meh. Just so boring. The first half of the game especially, it's really bad. The second half, there are some things that happen, so the story gets a little more interesting. And I remember it actually did get very interesting at some point, but then they never went anywhere with it. And they just went back to 7 out of 10 town, and I was like, oh. The enemy designs were uninspired, lots of reused designs, which was unfortunate, but the graphics were great, and the characters themselves were almost good. There are some characters there that were written pretty well, but a lot of them were just kind of stereotypical tropes that we've seen many, many times before. And I did play through the whole game. I enjoyed my time. I enjoyed my time with this game, but it was just wasn't great, and it wasn't bad. It was just very meh, and the most 7 out of 10 game I've ever played. Yeah, not great, but it was a lot of fun. It was still fun. The battle system is what really saves this game, and if you can find this game for under $20, I would recommend maybe picking it up and giving it a try. It's a beautiful game. The music's actually very good as well. It's just, some of the character designs and the writing and the story are things that we've seen many, many times before, so that's nothing to write home about. But anyways, those are some of what I consider to be the most average games that I've experienced. What are some of your guys's? What are your guys's most 7 out of 10 games? I would love to know. But thank you so much for sitting through this with me on this very average day. And I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.